Hey everyone, I hope all is well. So this is my first live. I actually I've been trying to go live for a little minute. Been trying to go live for a minute. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. The topic at hand today is something that's very it means a lot to me. And basically, what we're talking about is the return to the throne, guys. And when I say the throne, basically, we're talking about the goddess mind for um, for the divine feminine, and then for the divine masculine, that is the God mind. Returning to that state of mind, which is when you merge with your higher self. Um, it has taken me it has taken me years to get to a place where I could openly discuss the things that I am going to be discussing today. And it's not for matters of, not wanting to discuss those things. It's just some things are not meant to be publicized, especially when you're going through a divine remembrance of who you are, who you once were, and you know what you stand for, rather. So the first thing I want to talk about is, which is a question that is asked a lot. A lot of people ask the question because I actually was one of those people. Like, how do you know what your purpose is? And so it's really like no right way to answer that. Honestly, like I'm actually discovering that purpose is not always what you really think it is. Purpose is not necessarily um it's not really clear cut as to like, hey, this is what your purpose is, this is what you're supposed to do. It's a lot of work on the back end that goes into figuring out our purpose. Sometimes even through the hills that we're going through that we create for ourselves, that's a part of our purpose. I know we want to skip that. We want to skip that sometimes and then go right to what makes us feel good, and that's because of the fact that we're human. Like, at the end of the day, we're gods having a human experience. So a lot of times um you want to skip the parts of the journey that are painful, that are traumatic, that causes us to doubt or self sabotage. We want to skip right over that and get right into the God mind. But fortunately, that's what creates the goddess and the God mind, is those different experiences of not remembering, because those are the things that help you get activated, if you will, in the God mind. So yeah, purpose is like, that was like my number one thing. Like, that has been my number one thing. I'm not going to say I 100% am living in my purpose, but I can say that I'm living more in my purpose now than I ever have, like, in the past. So purpose wise, you'll go through certain things and you'll discover little tidbits of those things. Like, those experiences are a part of your purpose, because you'll find purpose in the experiences themselves. And so that's the number one thing, is purpose, finding your purpose. A lot of people are um, constantly searching for that, but I can tell you this: we lose a lot of valuable time not finding purpose in ourselves, because we're looking everywhere else on the outside versus looking within. And that's what holds us back a lot of the times when we're talking about our purpose. So I'll start here. About 10 years ago, I got on this journey of self discovery. And it's almost, it's kind of like by accident. You know how you go through a thing and then it puts you in a place to where, like, okay, I was doing this, but I'm no longer doing that. So it's like now I'm questioning, like, everything. right? So that was the situation with me again. About 10 years ago, I had a situation where I was accidentally, like, my alarm clock went off. And when it happened to me, I was like completely at a, I don't want to say a standstill, but everything that I thought I knew just became questionable to me. Like everything became questionable to me. And so the only way I could really explain it is like, it's like waking up one day with amnesia, basically. You know, at least that's how it was for me. I mean, of course, it's different strokes for different folks, but the consensus will tell you the same thing. Like one day, they could have gone through something traumatic and that triggered something and it woke them up unintentionally. But of course, we're gods and goddesses, so we set a scheduled time for when we want to reactivate or be reinitiated into our God or goddess mind. And those two words are interchangeable depending on whether or not you're speaking on the divine feminine or divine masculine. And just for purposes of the video, for all intensive purposes, we'll say God mind. Because again, the feminine and the masculine are both one. They both reside within the same vessel. But anyway, so yeah, I was triggered, and it put me into like a like a homeostasis, if you want to say. Just more so like with the amnesia, like the things that I thought that I knew, I I felt like those things were like deleted from my file. Like I started to seriously question like everything. Not just myself, but everything that I've been taught. Just a little bit of background history about me and my family. My family subscribed to Christianity, Baptist churches, Baptist church. Um, you know, uh, some of them, some of them more so on the spiritual side, but basically we grew up. I grew up in church. Me, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my grandmothers, family members that are preachers, ministers, things of that nature. I grew up in church. That's what I've known my whole life. But once I got on the path to enlightenment, I, I I abandoned those things, those ideologies of Christianity that were embedded in me as a child, because a lot of it became questionable to me. Like, for example, one thing in particular, and I never forget this. I remember one day just wondering, you know, why why are there homeless people sleeping outside of God's house? Here I am, a person like I've always been like big on like helping people. So when it comes down to like homeless people, I've been one of those people before. I know how it feels to not have um, the peace that having shelter gives you. You know what I'm saying? I know how that feels. I've been a person without shelter. My children as well. They were in the situation with me. So for me, I've always been big on charity. Charity has always been a big thing for me. Um, so I started questioning, like, well, these are God's people. Like, why are they not permitted in God's house? That doesn't make sense. And that was just like one of the things that started to, um, continuously be on like a loop in my head as far as like questioning everything. I started questioning my faith. I started questioning what I believe. Why do I believe these things? Like, obviously, to have belief in something means that you've yielded some sort of results from even thinking that this is a thing. So yeah, I started to question a lot of stuff, but church and God and what that meant, as far as I saw it, is what really got me on the path of um, I guess, spiritual enlightenment, because I'm not of any particular denomination, just simply because I understand what certain things mean, and I don't share that information to deter anybody from being a part of any religious denomination. I started off that way, like I said a few minutes ago, so I do understand a lot more than other people would what you know being a part of something, some sort of religious denomination might mean to you, especially when you're trying to discover who you are. Those things are needed. Those are tools that you need in order to move forward on your journey. But um yeah, I don't discourage anybody from listening to this message. This isn't just for people that are not of a you know religious denomination, people that aren't spiritual. I don't care about any of that. This is for humanity, you know as a collective. So don't tap out just because you hear me talking about what my experience was with religion. That's just my experience. And if listening closely into the video more, as I get to explaining what um being outside of that has done for me, then if you hear something that you can use, then take it and apply it. But we're all here to experience life, so I'm not judging anybody, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not judging anybody that's into church or any of those things. We all have our own experiences. So anyway, um outside of church and um questioning church and questioning really myself, because let me just say this, and everybody's ever been a part of religion does know this, especially when you've grown up in a Southern Baptist church and you're in the South, as I am. It is deeply rooted in you that God is the end all be all. You know, it's nothing other than that. But and I can't fault people for thinking that. It's just that I'm a free thinker. I've always been that way. It's never been someone making decisions for me, except when I was in a state where I couldn't as a child. But when you start to become an adult, you need more. You need soul food. You know what I mean? So I started to question everything. I started to question, if God is real, and well, why does this happen? Wars and things of that nature. But in hindsight, now I do understand that God is both good and bad. So am I. It's kind of like that whole devil and angel theory type deal. We're all of those things, you know. So, in me trying to understand who God was, I was actually trying to understand who I was. You know what I'm saying? Trying to understand who I was, in comparison to this God, that's so grand and so glorious and so wonderful that everybody talks about. But me separating myself from this being, this deity that in church we hear so much about, and just excuse me, in family in general, we always hear, Jesus did this, God did that. So I had the mind to find out who God was. And man, oh my gosh. when I started when I started to dig deeper and peel back the layers of my true beliefs, I was just unearthing things that I didn't even know were there. Like, what does it mean, to be God fearing? You hear that too. But the thing that you hear the most coming from the South and the Southern Baptist churches, for quote unquote Black people, the saying is this: don't ever question God. That's odd. That's this is how I started to think when I woke up, and unintentionally, I got woke up one day. And I was like, that was just like one of the things that I've heard people say so much, like, you don't question God. We don't question God. And I'm like, well, why the hell not? I mean, is God above a question? You know what I'm saying? Like the prophets in the Bible, Moses, Peter, Paul, they ask God questions. Well, Jesus rather, but you understand what I'm saying? Jesus and God, people use that interchangeably. They ask questions. You don't ask questions unless you are in a state of needing answers. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, how in the hell am I supposed to unscramble this figment of my imagination if I can't even ask it questions? So me being me, I said, I've always been this rebel, like I told y'all. It's always been in my spirit. I've always been that one to to do the things that they tell me not to do. I'm a rebel by nature. I am a warrior spirit. I cannot help it. That's who I am. So I just started asking questions and I started getting answers. One of my first questions to God was, if you are real, then show me. And the response was, can you look in the mirror? Can you see yourself? Because when you see yourself, you're looking at a personification of who I am. Like, okay, well, I'm like, well, what do you mean? You mean I'm God too? Well, it depends. It depends on who controls your reality. I'm like, damn, God, you're talking in riddles. I really don't know what any of this means. Well, what that means is that your God and another person's God might not be the same God. Okay? So after this long drawn out conversation with God, I'm starting to piece things together. I'm like, so you telling me that I'm God. And it's foreign to you, the thought that you as a human can be a God, that you can be God. But as I started to think about it, I'm like, I've done things that God would do. I remember a passage in the Bible that Master Teacher Bobby Hemmett always repeats just to let us know that we're God. And it goes, let me make sure I get it correctly. Ye are gods. And I'm just giving a short condensed version of it. Ye are gods. Greater works that I have done will ye do also. So if God has done great works, then he's saying greater works that I will do, then that makes me God. I'm like, okay, well, let me just process this. I have given my last with the intent of wanting to see someone else be well and have cheerfulness and thanksgiving in their heart. I have never done anything with the malice in my heart towards anyone. I would have malice towards myself before I have it towards anybody else. That's the type of person that I am. I am big on charity. I, have been amongst the highs and I've been amongst the lows, and I find myself comfortably in the middle between the two of them, the classes, and I always find it in my heart to be moved to give to those who don't have. That's always been who I am since I was a child. That's never changed. I am loyal to people, more loyal to people than they have been to me. I've been the person that's been doing most of the giving. And on the receiving end, it's always my cup ends up having to be refilled by me. Sounds a lot like God, sounds a lot like the Jesus story, like. So I started processing. I'm like, okay, this is making sense. So you're saying that, wait a minute, I am God. I am God. I started putting our stories together and I'm like, okay, he on call 24/9. I'm on call 24/10. I started putting it together. what really what really helped me to see it is that I started recognizing these gifts that I have. I'm like, well, this is something that I've always known, guys. I ran from it though. I ran from this so freaking much. Like I ran from what it meant to be able to know things that other people don't know. To always be on God's timing. This is a thing that I will tell you guys. Like when I started to come into the knowledge of myself and what being God meant, I started remembering like certain things that happened in my life. I could be in a situation where I needed something and I could demand it. And just like that, within minutes, within seconds, sometimes it's there. Power to be able to authoritatively call what you want into existence. But when your God mind is dormant, you don't really understand that this is what you're doing because you're engaging in the three-dimensional way of thinking. You're not engaging in your God mind. But as I started to engage with my God mind, I started to overstand a whole lot of things that never made sense before. My manifestation skills, as far as, like I said, calling something into existence from the spiritual plane and bringing it here in front of my face, tangibly being able to touch it. I've always been able to do that. Always. Some other things, like I said, like I just intuitively always happen to be at the right place at the right time. Always. And I never could explain that. I always thought, I was like, that's so weird that this happened to me. And I always am when I need something, my God mind has always been able to pull it to me by way of a person, place, or thing where I just happen to be in that place talking to the right person at the right time. And I'm actually living that reality currently. But when you're not engaged in your God mind, those things are what they call let me see how you put it. They call them coincidences. There are no coincidences. There are no coincidences. It's all about being engaged in your God mind and knowing. Knowing is matter. Matter is knowing. When you know, you flow. Period. No questions asked. When you know, you flow. Knowing is matter. And so I started to get into, you know, peeling back those different layers of, and thinking about like, you know, God does, God is miraculous. God does miraculous things. And I started to see how I have been that same miracle worker in my own life and in the lives of a lot of people that I've known. I've never met one person who can say that meeting me did not change the course of their life. Either we're going to exchange currency or we're going to exchange energy, which is way more resourceful than currency, because the resourcefulness of the energy exchange will bring about the currency. And so I started to, just pull out my little box of my let's see, how would we say this? I pulled out my box of magic tricks. At the top of that list is like my tools. All of the things that are in my magic box are my tools. It's like a treasure chest. So in my magic box, I would consider my speaking to be a powerful weapon. Because if I do not wield it correctly, then you have that reverse, which is that's gonna be that the dark side, that's the devil side, that's the shadow. Then when I do speak things and I speak them positively, commanding, putting power behind it, it brings it in. There is a pulling in, there's a magnetizing effect. That will be the light side of things. So when I put those together, my tongue is powerful. I'm a very powerful speaker. Excuse me. I have the ability to persuade. I have the ability to influence. And I'm not a celebrity. I've been in circles with celebrities before. I know celebrities. Things like that. That the kind of stuff don't excite me. I like to think that I was saved from that because of the fact that I am a part of something greater. Not that celebrities aren't. I think that celebrities, to do what they do and to have this skin that they have, it has to be very thick in order to do what they do. I'm just part of something greater. That's what I'll say. But my speech, my ability to wield my power in an influential way, I just choose to use it this way, using my platform that I've waited for like 10 years to do. Okay. So being able to speak and use my wisdom and my influence in a positive way, that's what I do. That's one of my gifts that I pull out of my treasure chest. And it's for as well as I can speak, I am very great at organizing my thoughts. I've not always been great at that. I think like the more I use my speaking abilities, the more my thinking cap is activated. That God mind is activated because it starts putting everything where it needs to go. So being able to speak and have power and influence and organization skills, those are some of my gifts. Also, again, like I said earlier, manifestation. I am, not to be braggadocious or anything like that. And yeah, I just have to say this, like my manifestation skills, when I'm tuned into myself and I allow my third dimensional self to, you know, mellow out. But when I tag in my higher self, my manifestation skills are ridiculous. They are ridiculous. But again, if I don't watch my thoughts, if I don't watch my words, knowing the power that I possess, I can manifest good and bad. I mean, but that's everybody though. But I'll speak mostly to my manifestation skills on a positive note. Like I've always been that master manifester. I've always had people ask me like, how did you do this or how did you do that? And I really can't really give an answer to it. I just tell people to know what it is specifically that you want and command it. And if it's for you, then it has to come. So yeah, that's one of my biggest gifts. Like like my speech, I'm really good at like talking to people. Like if you don't know me and I need something, and if you give me like 30 seconds to talk to you, then I got it. Whatever it is that I was calling for, it's done. You know, that's just that power. But to whom much is given, much is required. So it doesn't come without responsibility. It took me a long time to understand that. I've never abused my power like towards anybody else. Anytime that I've abused my power, it's been more so geared towards myself. And that comes with being able to love yourself, knowing your worth, um, disengaging from fear and disillusions and things like that. So yeah, to whom much is given, much is required when it comes down to power. I'm now trying to, I'm now actively, not trying to, but I'm now actively moving forward in my mission, which is to be a illuminated one, meaning there's a lot of darkness in this world. And again, like I said, all of us have the darkness and the light, but I've bloomed out of that. I've risen from the darkness into to my light, which is my higher self. And what that means is that I'm here to be of service for those who are still trying to find their way. I don't 100% know either, but I'm always willing to lend a helping hand to my celestial tribe. That's just who I am, and my tribe always finds me. That's another thing about this that's so unique. Is like I'll be like looking for something, or maybe even someone, something within. I'm looking for something within, and then someone comes along and it's like, that's what you need right there. Just to help me balance out whatever energy that I might be in at the time. I might be looking for, I might just be looking for somebody to talk to that's on the same frequency. I don't have to look too much. I might be out, and this has happened to me so many different times, guys. Like I've been out with my kids, and it'll be, weeks sometimes before I can talk to somebody that is spiritually, aligned with my soul. And then here comes somebody. I actually just had this happen to me like today and yesterday, and I don't even know if they were cognizant of the fact that this is what was going on, but I was. So yeah, like manifesting, bringing what I need to me, and sometimes what I want to. But like I said, great responsibility comes with that. When you're activating your God mind, um, it's gonna be there's gonna be distractions and you know bullshit on every corner. It's unavoidable. But that's why your God mind is activated, because your God mind is also a guide. You know, it's a guide, not to help you avoid any of those things, but to take you directly to it so that you can deal with it how God would deal with it. And that is a hell of a task to be able to take on. And sometimes I question, I'm like, I don't want to, have to, meet this distraction or this bullshit head on. I don't want to have to do that. But it's like, well, how are you going to know how to deal with it later when it happens again? It's like you can't, it's a test and you can't take no shortcuts, because if you do, you just might miss a very vital part of the information. And so, yeah, distractions, bullshit on every end. But that's a part of activating the God mind. You got to go through those things. It's basically you're creating a blueprint. And it might not necessarily be for you, it's for you in that moment. But that blueprint might just be for example, if you have kids, nieces, nephews, family members, friends, whatever. You know what I'm saying? You never know who you can save from what by the mistakes you make in life. And are not um all mistakes are not just empty like mistakes. Like all losses are not losses. Like you have to put the two L's together to make the W. That's just a fact. So when activating the God mind, you're going to be presented with hella challenges. You're going to be presented with, bullshit. And a lot of it is just basically challenging you to rise above it all. I mean, God would, right? Do you guys remember when they used to have those little bracelets, WWJD? What would Jesus do? What about the fact that you have an invisible one on? Once you decide to activate your God mind, you have an invisible one of those braces on, but it's invisible. It's because it's subconsciously supplanted. You know what I mean? Like, so it's subconsciously supplanted in your head. WWWGD. What would God do? And that's how we have to respond to everything. Of course you're going to be frustrated. Of course things are going to be repetitive, and they will get repetitive, because if you don't get what you're supposed to get out of the lesson, then you have to do it again and again and again until you get it right. That's the cycle that we're in right now. You're not getting out of here without, learning the lessons. You're not. No, nobody is. I mean, shit. If they can do it, I haven't seen it happen yet. Everything that I've done, up to this point, I made a lot of mistakes. I swear. I fucked up. I made a lot of mistakes, but it was so that ultimately it's not just so that I could get this right, so that I could put my ego in its place. There's a proper place for everything. They teach you that in grade school, right? Proper nouns and, things like that. It's a proper place for everything. The ego believes that it actually is in control. When you remove it and the higher self takes over, there is even no need for the ego. The ego is created from those traumas and those losses and those lessons, because it doesn't want to really deal with the reality of things. Because that's the lower self telling you, I don't have to do this. I can continue being, in my carnal state. And you can't. You can, but you'll experience the definition of insanity, which is, oh my God, I did that so many freaking times. And it literally did exactly what it was supposed to. Drove me that done crazy. It took me to just a place where I'm like, okay, like, what the hell are you doing? It was just like a repeated loop. And I finally, congratulations, I pat myself on the back. I finally cracked the code. There was no escapism. Again, you can't escape this shit. You can't. I just want y'all to know that you can't escape this shit. There's no escapism, okay? This was me realizing that, okay, you know what? I have done all that I could do. Three-dimensionally thinking. What will God do? I had to get to a place where that was the question, like every day for months. I heard, again, I'm going to reference Bobby Hemmett because he's a big part of my awakening process. I have to reference him. He did a lecture once, and he spoke about becoming God. You have to become God. But when you become God, God doesn't need all of the pleasurable material things of the world. God should strive for something else. And for months, I couldn't answer that question. What would God ask for? What would God do? What does God need? And it just dawned on me. God, because I'm God. You understand? You're God. Those of you that are tuned in and engaged in this video right now. When you activate your God mind, there isn't anything that you need. Because not only is all mental, because all is mental, every need that you have will be met, because you God. You command it. You speak it. You obtain it. You see it. You God. And for months, I found myself, after listening to his lecture probably hundreds of times, like, what would God ask for? God doesn't have to ask for anything. God doesn't have to ask for anything. God doesn't want anything. God is God for a reason. Generator, operator, destroyer, generator of my own thoughts, my own mind, my own destiny. Operator of my own mind. My higher self is in control. Destroyer of all that does not serve my highest purpose. The dragon slayer. you know? So, just to bring everything full circle, this is my first live, y'all. Honestly, I didn't know what I was going to get on here and talk about. So, I just allowed my spirit to move me, not for my own experience, but what the people need to hear. You can get on here and you can listen to YouTubers for hours. I know I do it all the time too. But when a person genuinely connects with you on a soul level, it's a different type of energy that's exchanged. It's a different type of frequency. And those are the YouTubers that I actually watch. Like I can get something out that's beneficial to my life, like something that is life changing to me. That's a part of my purpose, as I spoke about in the beginning of the video. I didn't know what I was going to get on here and say. I just allowed my higher self, the Holy Spirit, to guide me. And somebody needed to hear this. That's all I ever wanted to do in life. All I ever wanted to do in life was be to other people what I would want them to be to me. That's all I ever wanted to do in life. That's it. If I ever had a want as God, it would be for people to be more like God. To be there for each other, to empathize and sympathize when necessary, to have charity in their heart, because you never know when it might be you on the other end, to be open to the possibilities, because being closed-minded is its own personal hell. You open up your mind and it's endless possibilities there. Like you start to see and attract things that you never thought were possible. Like what I'm doing now. I knew that I would eventually, do this. It just took me some time to get past and slay the dragon, the ego. It took me some time to get to a place where I can really put my fullness of my life online, because I'm such a private person. I'm very private, guys. I'm not really like social media savvy, just to be honest. Like the most that I do is YouTube. I do YouTube. I don't even watch TikTok, guys. Don't tell nobody that. I'm not a TikTok person. But my kids are real computer savvy. I'm just old school, I guess. Like I'm old school. Like you know, I'm 36, so I'm of the 80s. You know what I mean? Like I really came in when the technology was just picking up. But I'm very tech savvy. I just don't do social media. So I'm saying that because I just want you to know that this is my calling. And when I talked about purpose earlier, this is my purpose, to reach out to the ones that I was sent here to reach out to. Not to give you hope, but revive you with your God mind. To be your alarm clock, to push the button, to initiate the takeoff. That's what I'm here to do. And I didn't know how this will go. I can't even believe I've been on here for this long. It's been almost like 45 minutes now. But when the spirit moves you and you're in the fullness of it, and you're in sync cosmically, then time lapses. Time lapses. And that's what this is. So I'll just take the last few minutes, y'all, to wrap up and just say this is the return to the throne. That's what this session is, a return to the throne. It's time for us to activate our God mind, stand on our square so that we can form a circle, being one with the one. And I'm here to be the catalyst for that, one of the catalysts for that. There's a lot of us out here, but I'm here to be a catalyst for that change. It's time to put the lower self to rest and initiate the higher self. Return to the throne, guys. 2024. That's what I'm about. I'm so grateful to be able to have a platform where I can speak truth to power, being my authentic self. I have not always been my authentic self. I ran from this calling for years. I ran from this. And I've allowed things, sure. I've allowed myself to be in environments that did not breed the necessary energy that I needed in order for my light to just shine like it is now. I've been in those environments. But when I activated my God mind and I returned to the throne where I can, be free from the way that the world would have me think versus how I truly am, I eradicated all those things. My higher self eradicated those things. I didn't have to do any work because, again, God, generator, operator, destroyer, the energies are in sync with your purpose and what you're trying to do. As long as you don't fight against it, if you fight against it, um, resistance will meet resistance, and then you got this tug of war because the ego really just wants to keep being egotistical. It want to do what it want to do. It's time for us to become gods. It's time for us to return to our thrones, and it's time for us to overstand the power that we possess. Because if you don't understand anything else, overstand this one thing. You might not know it, but they do. And with that, I want to thank all of my new subscribers, all of my viewers. I love you guys. Thank you for drinking in my transparency and just being present with me at this moment. Until next time, guys, I wish you activation in your God mind, cosmic realization, cosmic love, healing, abundance, and prosperity. Do me a favor, guys, as house etiquette or YouTube etiquette, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe so that you will be able to get all future notifications, guys. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I love y'all. Have a good night.